frogbitblog.
So, welcome to episode 33 of the Frogbitblog podcast. On this week's episode, I've got the King's College traditional singers coming in again. Their mum and dad have bribed me and they're going to try and do me a news jingle. So they'll be in a bit, so let's see what happens there. Lots of other stuff going on, so listen up, as they say.
Frogbitblog. The Frogbitblog.
So, what's been happening? Well, there's been quite a lot of stuff on climate change recently, as there should be. We've had a French environment minister has resigned live on air. And when he was being interviewed, I think he just halfway through the conversation just went, m'en fous, because he realised he was sort of living a lie because the French government aren't taking climate change very seriously at all. And he also said some interesting things about, like, in one meeting he was there and there was a lobbyist for the hunting fraternity was just allowed to sit on the meeting, and he's like, well, what is this, yeah? How do these people do it? Anyway, good on you, French minister, for having some principles. And while we're on the subject, the Samoan Prime Minister has called for anyone not believing in climate change to be put in a mental hospital. So that's the Americans, the Australians, and also the UK, French, Germans, who really just paid lip service to the greatest threat facing humanity. This is what the Samoan Prime Minister said. He said there is an existential threat for all our Pacific family. And he said that any world leader who denied climate change existence should be taken to a mental hospital. Any leader of those countries who believes that there is no climate change, I think he ought to be taken to mental confinement. He is utterly stupid, and I say the same thing for any leader here who says there's no climate change. Good on you, mate. And more positive news, California plans to be running entirely on renewable energy by 2045, having met its 2030 targets. It's going to meet them by 2020, so 10 years early. So good on you, California. Some people doing some positive things.
The Frogbitblog.
Right, I want to talk a little bit more about Alex the Parrot. If you remember last week, I was talking about Alex the Parrot and how really, really clever it was. And this is what I said. Now, the thing that gets me is when people say he's the cleverest parrot ever. But how would they know? I mean, if you spend your life working with Harvard professors and get trained, of course you can be able to do some tricks. But I imagine lots of parrots out there if trained would have the same cognitive abilities, wouldn't they? Well, yeah, it sounded a bit dismissive, didn't it? So we actually watched a documentary on Irene Pepperberg, the woman who was the friend of Alex. And in it, she does say that she asked for any random parrot in the shop just to show that she wasn't picking an exceptional parrot. It wasn't her that claimed Alex was unique. And what she was really doing was helping to show the world how intelligent and sentient birds were at a time when it wasn't really known. And she was also a woman scientist in a very male-dominated world at the time, because this was in the 70s, and she struggled to be taken seriously or get funding for her projects like she did. Because all the money at the time was going into sentient ape research and that kind of thing. So as an apology for Irene, I actually went online straight away and bought the book that she's written. And it's called Alex and Me. And this is the rather snappy subtitle. So it's Alex and Me, How a Scientist and a Parrot Discovered a Hidden World of Animal Intelligence and Formed a Deep Bond in the Process. So I'm going to read that, and I'm going to be talking about that pretty soon. So hang on in there for more Alex info, some deep hidden news about Alex. Ooh.
The Frogbitblog.
Right, and something else that I talked a while back. I remember I did the wasps episode, didn't I? Remember I did. I had wasps. I had some wasps on my show. Remember this? So let's hit for the wasp, motherfuckers! Well, it's that time of year, isn't it, for them? And they're everywhere. Well, they're not everywhere. Probably for my Australian and New Zealand listeners, they're not bloody there because it's bloody winter, isn't it? Or do you get bloody wasps in bloody winter? I don't bloody know. Well, anyway, here in the UK, it's been a bumper year for you, for them. And just to remind you, if they're hassling you, I found another article on them about a wasp from a wasp expert. So if wasps are hassling you, listen, it's a common misconception that wasps are more aggressive than bees. Oh, is it? In fact, they appear so simply because their food requirements mirror ours. Honeybees and bumblebees are herbivores blessed with long tongues, so they can obtain everything they need from flowers. Pollen for protein and nectar for carbohydrate. They rarely bother us. Wasps, on the other hand, are Wasps, on the other hand, are omnivores with short tongues. Like bees, they need sweet carbohydrates as their energy source, but the nectar in most flowers is inaccessible to them. That's a shame, innit? Unlike bees, they get their protein from meat, mainly in the form of insects, spiders, and other arthropods. However, catching their prey requires skill, and 7 times out of 10 they miss. So wasps will take the easy option whenever possible. What better then than a picnic to provide a wasp with fast food? It's like a wasp McDonald's, only we don't talk about McDonald's on this show because they're the Antichrist, so forget I said that. Anyway. This is where the conflict begins. Wasps have an extremely sensitive sense of smell and taste, so even the slightest trace of food on our skin can prove attractive. On top of the lure of our own human odour. Speak for yourself, you smelly scientist twat. No, anyway, we are made of meat after all. I discovered that wasps sting in 2 very different situations. The first is when a wasp is foraging for food, normally some distance from its nest. If a wasp lands on you, don't flap at it or try to brush it off. It will sting you. Just stay still and let it fly off in its own time. A wasp trapped in clothing is more difficult to deal with because any slight movement can press garments against it. So if you can bear it, stay very still and let the wasp find its own way out. Now, the second situation is much more serious, and our neighbour actually got stung by 20 of them because she stood on a nest by mistake. So, if you happen to be within 3 metres of a wasp nest and you're stung, other wasps may swarm in to attack, attracted by a chemical in the wasp venom. This alarm pheromone is highly effective deterrent designed to steer predators quickly away from the all-important wasp colony. The fiercest attacks are on dark-coloured, jerkily moving objects close to the nest. Wasps learn to recognise the landmarks near their colony, but only defend to about 3 metres. Right, so if you're wearing white, yellow, or a pale colour, the chances of further stings are significantly reduced. In addition, if you compare to move slowly and smoothly out of that 3 metre zone rather than flapping wildly like a soft twat, he didn't say that, I just added that bit, you'll probably get away with just 1 sting. So that's handy. If you see a wasp, don't move, because after all...
BWA, I hear you say, let's bees. With attitude. Let's bees. With attitude. You don't show us no gratitude. Don't wanna hear your platitude when we buzz around your food with bees. With attitude. With bees. With attitude. When you was having...
Now, here's an interesting one. I do all that conscious universe, hippie stuff. Well, a while back I did a piece on the musical universe. I came up with it. I probably didn't come up with this idea, but I talked about this idea that is music innately written into the fabric of the universe. Well, interestingly, there's an article in New Science about music and gravity, and this is what it says in the New Scientist. Heavy metal music isn't heavy after all. It is actually the opposite. Sound waves have mass and can interact via gravity, but that mass is negative. In other words, sound floats upwards. Angelo Esposito of Columbia University in New York and his colleagues calculated the relationship between sound and gravity. Taking into account complicated particle interactions that had previously been ignored, they found that although the effect is small, sound waves should have negative gravitational mass. It's almost like anti-gravity, says Ira Rothstein at Carnegie Mellon University in Pennsylvania. Then it finishes there because you have to pay because it's a paywall. And I'm not going to pay anymore, so I'm just going to make this stuff up. Now, if sound waves have a negative gravitational mass, this may explain why music is uplifting, apart from Ed Sheeran, obviously, because it is literally uplifting. Who knows, in future, spaceships could travel in space powered by hip-hop, rock and roll, in fact, anything except Justin Bieber. Why? Because there's a recent picture of the Biebs, as we shall call him, in a coyote fur coat. Twat. Right, crows. I'm talking about crows again, aren't I? I'm always on about crows. Did you know a group of crows can be called a murder, a horde, a hover, a muster, and a parcel? They're the collective nouns for crows. Well, maybe now it should actually be changed to a litter of crows. Why is that, I hear you ask? Well, qu'est-ce que c'est ça?
Ouh, là-bas, dans les arbres. Un m'en fous, un homme avec une gauloise, vite.
It is food time. Come on, my petit chou-fleur. 6 crows have been trained to pick up cigarette ends and rubbish will be put to work next week at a French historical theme park, according to its president. The goal is not just to clear up because the visitors are generally careful to keep things clean, but also to show that nature itself can teach us to take care of the environment, says Nicolas de Villiers of the Puy de Pau Park in the western Vendée region. Rooks, a member of the crow family of birds that also includes the carrion crow, jackdaw and raven, are considered to be particularly intelligent and in the right circumstances like to communicate with humans and establish a relationship through play, Villiers said. The birds will be encouraged to spruce up the park through the use of a small box that delivers a nugget of bird food each time the rook deposits a cigarette end or a small piece of rubbish. So they're training crows to pick up litter and they get a reward in return. It's a shame we have to get them to do that, but it's all good, isn't it?
Frogbitblog.
Well, it's time for...
Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt a lot. Hey!
I didn't have a Hope It Hurt last episode, but there's been a few this week. There's been a few bullfighting related ones recently, or bull related ones. First of all, a man was gored and 4 people were badly injured on the first day during the Pamplona bull run in, it's in Pamplona, isn't it? In Spain, obviously. Well, what do you expect if you jump onto a street for some gaudy spectacle? That's tradition, isn't it? Anyway, so... 4 people, 1 man gored, 4 people badly injured. And also recently a matador has been scalped. Yep. Here's a video of it. I didn't watch the video, but a matador being scalped as he's trying to put them bandeleras on his shoulder, on the bull's shoulders, and he gets scalped. Good. Also, some idiot went to see an exhibition of animal torture in Spain. This is what it said. During a Spanish festival in Somacarse, Valencia, a young woman who jumped into a ring in order to take a selfie was gored by a bull whose horns were set on fire as part of our tradition. Oh, that's all right then, isn't it? The tradition remains popular in many towns across the country. The Toro Embolado festival, translated as bull with balls, involves a bull being tied to a post as balls of flammable material are placed on the animal horns, which are then set on fire. The town festival includes setting the animal loose within the bull ring while the audience looked on behind metal bars. As the bull ran wildly around the arena, the woman reportedly wanting to take a photo climbed into the ring and the bull tossed her in the air. Well, it serves you effing right, doesn't it? And finally, I did I Hope It Hurts about a poacher getting eaten by a pack of lions, and I think it sounded like it was from an African website. And on the same website there was a link of a hunter trying to shoot a lion and film it to put on Instagram, because there's some weird people that do that kind of thing, and it all went horribly wrong. And this is what it said. This is what it says on the website. These hunters kill the most feared animals on the planet and post photos on social media. Now, it was all captured on video, and I didn't watch it, but in the video, the website had the following headlines for each clip, so I'll just read out the headlines. If you want to watch the clips, hunt them down and find them, but I don't think you would particularly. Instagram trophy hunter misses his shot and gets eliminated by the lion. A terrifying video has been making its rounds online, showing a group of trophy hunters. The hunters are huddled together as they finally laid eyes on a male lion that would be a perfect fit for a photo opportunity and trophy. So they turn on their cameras and take aim at the lion they spotted in the wild. But the hunter misses his shot and the lion comes back for the attack and savagely mauls the hunter. Good. Because you know what? It's weird, isn't it? Celebrating the death of another human being. And I do try to be positive, and I try to be open-hearted and see the good in people. And I'm trying to help bring about raising awareness and enlightenment of the way that we treat this planet and everything. But you know what?
Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt a lot. Hey! Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, good, I hope it hurt, I hope it hurt a lot. Hey!
Right, if you remember, a while back, I had them nice posh lads on, the King's College Traditionals. I'd seen them busking in town, they sounded lovely, and I thought them asked them on the show to do a jingle. And it all went horribly wrong as they turned into their alter egos, punk band Toxic Dogsick. Well, they've done the Rich People Doing Good Eco Things and the Nature is Clever jingle, yeah? Well, their parents, Lord and Lady Overprivileged Ponsonby Twatface Smythe, have been on to me again and offered me lots of cash to get them on again. And you know me, I'll do anything for a bribe. So I thought I'd commission them to do another jingle, as they want one for my news item at the start of the show. So I've got them in again, and here they are in the live lounge, ready to cause a new jingle. So hello, Julian, Crispin, Sebastian, and Henry.
Hi!
Hello, Mr. Frogbit. Right, boys, the brief was to write me a news jingle, something like this. You know, the sort of thing that the BBC would do.
Yes, we've been listening to all the old BBC news jingles.
Oh, have you got access to the BBC archives?
Oh, Mummy and Daddy own the BBC archives.
All right, okay, so can I just ask, other than your mother and your father offering me loads of cash to have you back on, why are you bothering to do a jingle for a show like mine?
Good question, Mr. Frogbit. Mummy and Daddy said they're going to buy us a career in music, but before we write for anyone important, that we should practice on working-class northerners like yourself.
Oi, I'm a teacher. I'm middle class now.
You're still working-class to us. Anyway, they said we should practice on a working-class northerner like yourself, because it doesn't matter if we mess up and wreck your career, because you're not important.
Oh, thanks anyway. Anyway, you know the brief. A BBC News-style jingle, no swearing, sort of important sounding. So anyway, are you going to be the King's College Traditionals or your alter ego Toxic Dogsick?
We're not sure yet. We have to feel the vibe, man.
Feel the vibe, man? What sort of talk's that? Hey, why are you all giggling?
I don't know, Mr. Frogbit, but we're all feeling a bit funny. It must have been something we ate.
Why, what have you eaten?
Well, Daddy's chauffeur was ill, so we had to get the train with the common people. When we got off at the station, this man asked us if we wanted some hash cakes. Well, we were all starving and we love hash browns. Nanny makes them for us all of the time, so we had one each. Didn't take much like hash browns, if I'm honest.
Hash browns, they're hash cakes. They're not the same as hash browns. That's marijuana. Will you be okay playing your jingle?
Yes, we think
Okay, go on then, give it a go.
Here is the news, the Eco News. Come listen to the Eco News. Here is the news, the Eco
Henry, stop it! I can't even. It's okay, boys.
Are we feeling the vibrations and the groove, man? Come on, let's stir it up.
Oh no, bad reggae from white guys.
The news, man. What fake, what true, man. So listen to, man. The Eco News, man. Alright. Babylon and King. Marcus Garvey, Rastafari. I've been doing this. A knife, a fork, a bottle and a cork. That's the way we spell New York. Right on, man. Another one by the dust. Kill them all and come back alone. Kill them all and come back alone. Skinny belly, like a skinny belly round.
Hey, you can't say that.
Kill them all.
Boys, I think you're under the influence of marijuana. That song you're doing in that dodgy Jamaican accent, that's called cultural appropriation. You can't do that.
Cultural appropriation is sweeping the nation with a strange vibration, man.
Oh God, look, I'm gonna have to stop you there. Stop, please stop. You've shown yourselves up again, boys.
Sorry, Mr. Frogbit. Sorry. No, Mr. Frogbit, you haven't got any crisps and chocolate, have you? We're all starving.
No, I haven't. Look, I'll order you a taxi, get your things, get back to the train station, get back to Poshville and sleep it off, will you?
Can you also order us a pizza? Okay, sorry. Bye. Ciao.
Bloody hell, what they like, listeners. I am really, really sorry about that.
The frogbitblog.
Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes my way. Now, what have those lyrics got to do with elephants, I hear you ask? Well, the chorus is, like a true nature's child, we were born to be wild. And that's a bit more of a clue, actually, because I found out the other week, and I thought this is a great story and a great example of...
Rich people doing good eco things. Rich people doing good eco things.
Well, the band that sung that song, of course, it's Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, a 60s band and a 60s hit. And this is what singer John Kay said about this. The song changed my life. 12 years ago, my wife and I sold all our music business assets and ploughed everything into wildlife conservation, helping endangered elephants that were born to be wild. The song has been used in so many movies that, after 60, we gave up counting. NASA woke up the space shuttle crew with it, and when they landed a spacecraft on Mars, the little robot vehicle came down the ramp to the sound of "Get Your Motor Running." Great, eh? And then John Kay and his partner set up the Mue K Foundation, and I'll put the links for it on the website and the Facebook page in the show notes. That's flipping great, that, isn't it? Someone using their wealth to make the world a better place. So good on you, John Kay, and your wife and partner, who also sounds a really interesting character. And I'll tell you what I found out about her. Jutta Moe Kay was born in Hamburg, Germany after the end of World War II. During her teenage years, she became increasingly fond of American exports, particularly rock and roll. Music was also one of the reasons she chose to work in the coffee houses and clubs of Toronto, Canada, after emigrating there in 1962. One evening in October 1965, she watched a performance by Canadian band The Sparrows and thereafter met the band lead singer John Kay. That meeting marked the beginning of a relationship and later marriage, which became a lifelong partnership. After joining her soon-to-be husband in LA in 1967, Jutta became one of the instigators of the formation of John's new band named Steppenwolf, which, due to the success of such classics as Born to Be Wild, went on to be one of the iconic bands of the 60s. So she had a daughter in 1968 and she became drawn to martial arts, eventually earning a black belt in Shotokan karate in the 80s. She and her husband John formed the Muay Kei Foundation, which is primarily focused on the protection of wildlife, the environment and human rights. An accomplished photographer with a keen eye. That's what it says, a keen eye. Just the one then. What does the other one do? Is it the one not so keen? Anyway, she often documents the Foundation's projects and activities with her instructive and compelling images. In 2014, Jutta joined the board of directors of Orangutan Foundation International, that she supported for several years. Anyway, so what a great couple, and all because of Born to Be Wild. So I'll put the links in the show notes. Have a look and support them in any way you can. And another good example of...
Rich people doing good eco things. Rich people doing good eco things. Rich people doing good eco things. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at. And you can't help it if you're a posh rich twat.
Frogbitblog.
Right, I want to talk a bit about psilocybin. It's been turning up in a few articles I've been reading, and here's a really interesting one, okay? In a groundbreaking development in the field of psychiatry, 2 new studies were published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology showing that a single dose of psilocybin, a powerful, naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms, can radically improve the well-being and positivity of terminally ill cancer patients. The research gave participants diagnosed with advanced cancer a moderate to high dose of psilocybin in a controlled environment with psychological support from highly qualified guides. Results demonstrated immediate and marked reductions in their levels of anxiety and depression that, remarkably, still persisted 6 months later in 80% of the participants. Presently, end-of-life care consists of supportive counselling and pharmaceutical treatments such as antidepressants to quell the feelings of isolation, depression and anxiety commonly associated with a diagnosis of a terminal illness. However, most medications along with psychotherapy can take months to start working and are not effective for all patients. And results across the 2 trials showed that psilocybin produced immediate and significant decreases in measures of depression, anxiety and mood disturbance, and increases in measures of quality of life, life meaning death acceptance and optimism. And those benefits were still present in 80% of the participants after 6 months. That's brilliant, isn't it? It's sort of, it also says after the kind of experience, people feel that they've learned something that's of deep meaning and value to them. They attribute changes in how they approach life, interact with people, and to their value system, to that experience. Now, it sounds to me like that should be compulsory, yeah? There were no serious adverse effects in the trial. Some people reported nausea, headache and a transient anxiety. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, the psilocybin's been banned since the 60s, but to help people that suffer in anxiety, that have got terminal illnesses, what a great thing, what a great positive thing to happen. So I'll be doing a bit more on psilocybin because there's more tests and all sorts of stuff about it at the moment, but I think that's absolutely brilliant. So if you're dying, drop some acid. No. Psilocybin is found naturally in magic mushrooms. I'm not going to be so flippant there, but, it's worth considering these things, isn't it? What an interesting article. Right, so I'm having a chat with Dawn this week. We've got some new chickens, haven't we, Dawn? We have, yes, against my initial desire. Yeah, because if you didn't know, we had 4 rescue chickens. If you don't know what they are... they're battery chickens, and I think once they've stopped peak egg laying production is they're sent to the slaughterhouse, and there's an organisation called, what is it called? The British Hen Welfare Trust that rescue them, and they give them to people that want to rehouse them. And we had 4 for a couple of years that were very healthy and happy. Then, unfortunately, in June, the fox got in and killed them, and we weren't sure. You definitely weren't sure about getting any more because you were so upset by it, weren't you?
Well, it wasn't just that I was upset. I actually felt quite guilty about not having kept the sanctity of their pen in place. There was a hole in the wire which we'd failed to notice. That's how the fox got in. So I was grappling with some big questions there.
So anyway, we got some more. We saw this.
Well, no, actually, Nick, I wanted to say as well, an important point. The chickens, they're only about 18 months old when they're sent to slaughter, when their egg production starts to wane.
Yeah.
And they have a typical lifespan of 6 years. So that's like 4.5 years. They're basically killed as young women.
And we got an email through off the Hens Trust, which we'd not had before, saying, there's a collection if you want some more chickens. And it just so happened to be on our birthday. Me and Dawn have a mutual birthday, and it was then. And we thought, it's a sign. So last weekend we went and got some, didn't we? And we got 2. You picked one. It was really good because one sat on her own, wasn't there, looking all forlorn and no feathers whatsoever.
She wasn't even looking forlorn. She was looking completely mental.
Looking completely scared. And you said, I want that one, because you thought no one else would pick her. And there was hundreds of chickens. They had to chase it all around this pen, didn't they? But they got it. And she's going to be lovely. She's quite bald at the moment. She's called Minnie. So we've got 2. We've got Minnie and Floss, who are really bald. And we've got Moira and... what's the other one called? No, June, who aren't quite so bald.
That's an important point.
And and they're settling in. They're so used to not having space and nice food.
Can I just bring you back a moment though to another important point? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have gone ahead with the 25th of August collection.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I was putting all these obstacles up and barriers in my mind and forgetting that these chickens just bloody well needed saving. And the only reason why I did was as an act of love for my husband.
Yes, thank you, darling.
Which is important because I think a lot of people think, I haven't got the time, the energy or the resources to look after chickens. And I think my head was going down that route.
Anyway, you've been seeing. I've heard this other man's name being mentioned quite a lot. I sneak into your room and you're looking at this bloke called Ted. Ted Talks. What's been going on there?
No, it's not Ted, darling.
It's not Ted.
No.
What is it?
He's Damien Mander.
Oh, who's Damien Mander?
So he's the founder of the International Anti-Poaching Foundation. Formed about 10 years ago. He was, his story is phenomenal. I recommend both the TED Talk, but, lots of interesting articles and websites online. We'll put those in the show notes. He was an ex-military man, a sniper, born to destroy, he said, all that sort of male rubbish that goes on. And I'm not going to tell you the incident that happened in Africa, but basically his mind and heart were opened by some of the slaughter he saw of wildlife in Zimbabwe, and
he turned it around. Did he have a sudden...
completely turned it around, sold all his properties, bought on the profits of war, put all of his personal monies into creating this foundation. But it was actually a specific project within the foundation, the Akashinga team, that caught my eye on the BBC, which was headlined by the BBC, so it is in the mainstream reporting as well. So
what's that about then?
The Akashinga team. So the Akashinga in Zimbabwean means the brave ones. And,
what are they? Tell us what the Akashinga, tell us what they are.
Akashinga.
Akashinga,
right.
Yeah.
So basically the Akashinga team are... it's an all-female vegan anti-poaching team. They're trained in exactly the same way as the male anti-poachers, which has typically been quite military in its style and approach. But this guy, Damien Mander, saw that it wasn't successful, or not successful enough to sustain itself. So he just thought, let's try a different energy. Let's... recruit women who, not just women who were animal loving and or ambitious and or masculine in their energies, but actually women who were incredibly vulnerable. So we're talking abandoned wives, orphans, sex workers, sexual abuse victims, which in itself I still don't get. That hasn't been tied into the whole story yet, but it's the part that most fascinates me.
Okay, and he trains them up. Does he train them in a military style?
Yes.
Okay, but do they carry guns?
Yeah, oh God, yeah, no, they have the exact same weaponry and tactics as the male anti-poachers, but the thing is that their energy is different. Apparently, they have the ability to de-escalate the situation with the poachers.
So whose idea was it that they should all be vegan, and what's the logic behind that?
Well, the vegan part is that Damien Mander himself, who was a confessed over-consumptive meat eater, eventually saw the light, saw himself as bad as any poacher. He was going to, get the barbecue out and start killing and have cows killed for his own personal delight. But he kind of saw that veganism was just naturally tied in with his conservationism. So that's a part of the regime for the women, not just because they're protecting animals, but for their health as well. So, I mean, it's really holistic.
All right, cool. Have you got some quotes from there or something that you wanted to? Did you find something on it?
Well, yeah, just a couple of interviews I've seen with him. One was in The Revelator. Wild, incisive, and fearless is the byline for this online site. That's not the right word. Website. So Manda was frustrated with the corruption in the country, even after the deposing of Mugabe. And what he said is, when he employed the all-female team, he said, this is the evolution of man to see something we should have seen in the past. Women will change the face of conservation forever. And, he goes on to discuss the point, that maybe women have something inherent within them to actually change the face of the whole world and not just conservation. Situations that are currently dealt with in a military style via government. So yeah, he's opened up a can of worms there. I mean, I'm not coming from a feminist stance, but
well, why not?
That's the question that comes into my mind.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's a good point. We're going to have to stop it there because we've rattled on for ages. So thank you for that conversation, young lady.
You're welcome, dear.
Okay. Right, that's all I've got time for, so I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you're in England and in London, or if you're in England, on the 22nd of September, there is a People's Walk for Wildlife, Hyde Park, gather 10 a.m, infotainment 12 noon, walk 1 p.m, finish 2 p.m, and it's led by Chris Packham, who I've talked about before, so if you're around and you're available, try and get down to that and support wildlife in the UK. That's all I've got time for. Bye!
The Frogbitblog.